So this is the talent development and employee engagement discussion peer-to-peer session. The session is I need a cocktail. The session is a continuation of the previous session, leveraging partnerships for a more robust and inclusive workforce. It will be a broader and more interactive conversation about talent development and employee engagement. The session will feature experts working at the intersection of sustainability, HR, community engagement, who are leaders implementing innovative solutions to address our Wisconsin-based workforce issues and challenges. So that's the overview. So if you are in the audience, hopefully you are excited to talk about these topics. So we have a poll. We put together some polls to kind of gauge the audience's interest and kind of interact with you and see what's going on. So if Karen, I believe that's Karen, who is our moderator. Thank you. So if everybody could answer the first poll. So what challenge does your organization experience in the workforce development space? And mind you, you can answer multiple ones. So if everybody wants to take a couple minutes to answer this, then we'll use this kind of as our foundation for digging into these topics. When I say everyone, I mean all the attendees. If you attendees would like to please, somebody put in corporate social responsibility, employee buy-in, okay. How to recruit traditional, good. Yeah, if all attendees could answer the poll questions, this would be great. See if we can get a couple more people of the 31 people that are online to respond to our poll. So the question is, what challenges does your organization experience in the workforce development space? Employee engagement, we have 2 people. Recruitment and retainment of workforce, 4. I think that's the largest so far. Hiring talent, identifying talent within an organization. Workforce planning, short and long term, 2 people. Effectively addressing aging workforce, large number of retirees. Good, more people are responding. Diversity, equity, and inclusion, and how to implement proactive DE&I strategies within your company culture. Corporate social responsibility and employee buy-in, and how to recruit returning citizens to your organization. The last one is how to recruit traditionally marginalized populations into your workforce, i.e. persons with disabilities, returning citizens, veterans, part-time workers, and first-time workers. All right, so it looks like we have 7 people who really want to talk about how they're challenged with recruitment and retainment of workforce. So I think let's start there. Jerry, would you like to talk a little bit about some of the things that Aurora Advocate is doing right now to really address that topic?
Yeah, I mean, I can probably go on for about 12 hours on the things we're doing to address. I could probably speak first and foremost of, the things that I'm working on. And, you get to a point with your workforce where, I guess, more so recruitment, that, the availability of skilled talent just isn't there externally, unless you're luring people away with, sign-on bonuses and, stealing from your competitors, which, it does happen. What we're really trying to do in this space is create new pipelines for individuals to get those skills and be able to create an additional pipeline in addition to everything we're doing from a talent acquisition perspective. You heard me talk a few times before about, working with apprenticeships. I think that's a great way to get that skilled talent in. We work closely with, our workforce boards and sourcing individuals with disabilities to come into our organization. Many of those individuals have those skills and are just looking for an employer to take a chance on them. As well as we participate in corporate internships, getting those individuals in the door right out of college. And I'm guessing a lot of employers on the line are already doing that. But, I really go back to the focus of trying to create new pipelines to be, in our lines of work, and one of those things we're doing right now in the youth space is we're working with a collaborative out of Milwaukee. It's the 3 largest educational institutions. So it's Milwaukee Public Schools, METC, and UW-Milwaukee. And we're working on them with a dual enrollment program where high schoolers will walk out of high school with an LPN certification and their high school diploma. And really what we're doing is using that pipeline to be able to offset our extreme need for nurses and medical assistants within our organization. So we're really thinking, innovatively about what we're doing in that space to get individuals in the door versus traditional, I guess you want from a talent acquisition perspective, post and pray, hope, post that position and hope someone applies for it that meets that need. We're really going out there and creating those innovative pipelines to be able to source new talent and create that talent as well. So just a high level, conversation starter about what we're doing in that space.
That's awesome, especially because we have so many challenges, right, in the Metro Milwaukee or southeastern Wisconsin area with bringing, finding workers and bringing them into. So that's great, Jerry. Wow. Like I said, I'm just so impressed with the whole panel. Kenya, would you like to talk about some of the things that Trane's doing? Because I know you're bigger picture, right? So more than just Wisconsin. You want to talk about some of the cool things that you're doing from a retention and engagement standpoint?
Sure. Retention and engagement, I think for us is, we've got so many different people in so many different places, right? So just like Johnson Controls, you could be at a headquarters location, you could be at a small site that's a small plant, you could be at a large plant where you've got to travel through that plant on a bicycle. I mean, like there's so many different places that you can be in the organization that we have to be very thoughtful about what some of the unique needs are for people in different spaces. One of the things I was just going to share just quickly around recruiting efforts was looking at sometimes these challenges that we have for finding talent as not just a unique issue for your company. Jerry mentioned it, right? You're in some communities where you really are in a place where you're just trading off talent. So are there opportunities to bring kind of to bear all of these companies coming together? So our CEO participates in a group of CEOs in the greater Charlotte area. That's a council where they're just really looking at what are some of the challenges that are happening in this market. We've done it in areas outside of Charlotte with a program called FAME. So it's through the Manufacturing Institute, but really partnering with other companies to say, hey, let's connect with our economic development office for this area or county. And then let's also connect with the local community college and let's partner to provide the funding for some training opportunities. And then, instead of one of us forging ahead and kind of getting ourselves in a situation where we're going to maybe train talent and then lose them, let's all partner together and try to get this as an opportunity to advance the community and kind of flood that level of talent in that organization. But of course, once you bring people on, you want to be able to keep them. And I think what we've been really good at is there's some decisions that are a corporate decision, and there's a whole lot more that's decided locally. And we rely a lot of times on those local teams to be listening to hear some of the challenges that those groups are facing so that they can address it kind of one-on-one and specific to that area. So I know in some of our locations, of course, this summer, if you're in a plant location, right, you may have been working and had to navigate what that looked like through social distancing, but they've made a lot of accommodations at some of the plants to really take care of the folks that maybe work in different schedules or things to try to accommodate both work and then trying to manage their families and kids being away from school.
Oh, that's great. I really like what you said about how it really comes down to the local. I mean, there's big picture issues and challenges across the company, but really it's at the local level that so many decisions are made, right? To help engage and retain the workforce. And it's different because there's a culture, right? So each of your plants has a different culture. Like there's, right? So I think, I don't know.
All the needs are different.
I think that's great because I think we forget that, right? I think we think, oh, it's all the same, right, across the organization, and it's not. Communities are different. I mean, we love the Packers in Wisconsin, right? So there's different cultures in different places. So I think that's brilliant. I think that's something a lot of us may forget sometimes. Thanks, Kenya. Jenna, why don't you talk about what's going on at Johnson Controls and the programming you're doing to address, these same workforce issues?
Yeah, in terms of workforce development and recruitment, so I talked about some of our, recruitment, the organizations we partner with for diversity, Society of Women Engineers, et cetera. I talked about our technical training programs with Lincoln Tech. We have others too, like with the Philadelphia Energy Coordinating Agency. Same sort of thing where we train students to build their technical expertise and hopefully hire them. I talked about how we work with nonprofits to fund them and, the kinds of things that our employees are passionate about, again, to that local. I totally agree that you need to, what do we say, right? Think globally, act locally. So there we are. Totally agree. And then, so just two other things. We also, we partner with our customers. So Johnson Controls works with really big customers, usually like hospitals and schools. So universities and K through 12 schools. So in the K through 12 schools, we actually have a curriculum where we provide energy efficiency training to the kids there. So students participate in these energy savings contests, activities. There's a whole curriculum. It's a whole STEAM curriculum. They learn about water conservation, renewable energy, electrical generation, et cetera. And the idea is that hopefully then they'll get passionate about those kinds of things and then, again, eventually work for Johnson Controls. And then, so that's through the K through 12 level. And then there's this other partnership. So we worked with Lawrence Berkeley National Lab to develop our BETTER tool. It's called, so BETTER stands for Building Efficiency Targeting Tool for Energy Retrofits. So the idea of that is that university students can take this tool, it's now open source, and use it in their buildings to identify places where those buildings can be more energy efficient. And the idea there is that then they learn about, what does it mean for a building to be more energy efficient and what technologies can make buildings be more energy efficient. And then again, hopefully that helps provide some pipeline workforce for us. So those are a couple other things that I didn't talk about earlier. So.
Wow, that's cool. I want to try this tool now because
that is cool. Yeah, you should. So you can look it up, the BETTER tool. We just won this R&D 100.
Can you share, Jenna, can you share it in the
yeah,
conversation? Because I think
sure.
that'd be really cool. Okay, so we kind of touched on a little bit. Can we talk a little bit about on-the-job training? Because as we look towards the future, and Kenny kind of touched on it, as we look towards the future, we know that the reality is, one, that technology is changing really quickly, right? So maybe the technical schools or the four-year colleges aren't always able to keep up with what the students need, what the businesses need students to be trained and engaged in. So business is really stepping up, and business is saying, we're going to do the training on our, we're going to take that on our shoulders, right? We're going to train the workers ourselves because the technology is changing and we need to meet that demand. And so I guess I'd like you all to tell me an example where your business is doing on-the-job training and how and why you're doing it, and do you think that this is the future? I mean, I think it's the future, but I don't want to make an assumption about what you all think. And again, thinking about the different cultures of organizations, I kind of feel like this is the direction we're going, but I'd love to hear your thoughts. So Kenya, I want to start with you because I know you were talking a bit about kind of on-the-job training now. Oh, you're muted.
Trying to be a good partner. Talking about the FAME program, we partnered with the Manufacturing Institute because, we have a need for maintenance technicians in our in several of our plant locations. So trying to figure out, do we forge ahead on our own, or is there someone out there that has already mastered this that we could learn from? And we realized that the Manufacturing Institute had this structured program. We're looking at rolling it out in 4 of our locations. But the goal of it would be that because we want people to also finish the program with something tangible, right? So if you're going through a technician development program, do you walk out with your journeyman's card? If you're going through this maintenance technician program, are you graduating with an associate's from a local community college? So making sure that, yes, we're going to provide some of the experience opportunities because they'll participate in the formal program. And then on the off days, they're actually working for us and getting paid. And hopefully it offsets, right, the cost of that education. We want to be sure that you've got something that it's valuable to you, not just internally, but it's valuable to you in that community, right, or in the profession. So we're leveraging the FAME program. We're launching, like I said, we're going after 4 locations, and the goal would be that when they're working in the plant environment, they're getting exposure in that same plant, that they would then roll over and eventually fall into employment. But I think the thing that's really critical is that I'm not going to put any limits on anybody in the program, right? So part of the attachment to us for employment is attachment to opportunity. So if you want maintenance technician to be your terminal role and you retire as a maintenance tech, we will never stop you. But if you want to use that as a springboard into something else, you now have the opportunity for tuition reimbursement, right? That there's a lot of other opportunities. So just trying to create that pathway and trying to also be mindful of the cost of education and making sure that we're paying people in a way that they can then use that same money to maybe offset the cost of the program.
Okay, brilliant. Just brilliant. I love it. That's wonderful.
Luckily, FAME does it. All we have to do is sign up.
That is so great. I mean, and we're getting some questions in, but I want to have Jerry talk a little bit about some of the stuff that you're doing, because he and I have talked about this too. And it's similar to what you're doing, Kenya, but it's a bit different because, again, they're in the healthcare field. And then we'll get to some of the questions from the audience. Jerry, take it away.
Yeah, it's a really good question that you ask about this on-the-job learning piece. It's, what we're seeing right now for certain fields, like in Kenya's situation, maintenance techs, in our world, it's allied health professionals, nurses. The need is 10 times more than, all the educational institutions are able to put out. So really what we're looking at is how do we step up as an employer to be able to help meet that need? Some of the things we're doing, I mentioned registered apprenticeships. That's a great way. But, something I haven't mentioned yet is coming together with our healthcare collaboratives. And I haven't mentioned this yet, but one of our strategies includes partnering with our competitors from a patient space. We're coming together from a workforce development lens to be able to, and I can speak in the Milwaukee area, we've formed a collaborative with 3 other healthcare systems that are competitors, but we've come together to say, how can we collectively put our heads together to be able to meet this need that all of us has? So what we've done in this space is formed a separate 501c3 so through our local workforce investment board, Employ Milwaukee. We have staff that work for this organization, and we've actually written for a grant to be able to put up our own medical assistant training program that we have our classroom, our lab, our instructor, and we've developed this curriculum as an employer to be able to pay people for 14 weeks, put them through an accelerated medical assistant program to help meet our urgent need for medical assistance. So those individuals are recruited. They may have barriers to, traditional college environments, like maybe they have 2 jobs, maybe they, have, are a single parent, and maybe you have children at home that they need to support versus going to school. So what we're doing as an employer is paying them to go to school, whether that's an apprenticeship program or this medical assistant program I'm talking about. It's really trying to help engage that level of the population that may not be able to go to college, but still meet our employer needs. So we're actually launching that in 3 weeks with our first cohort, and we'll be continuing that for the next 2 years. But looking to do a lot more things in those spaces to be able to be innovative and creative and put our collective heads together.
Okay, that's brilliant too, and amazing. I'm so proud of the work you're doing. This is great, and thank you for doing this in Milwaukee. I mean, this is great. Wow, bravo to both of you. Both your companies do amazing things. I'm not going to leave Johnson Controls out. So Jenna, why don't you tell us about some of the cool on-the-job training programs that you've put in place, and then we'll take some questions from the audience.
Sure. So we certainly have lots of on-the-job training. That was something that, so I came from the nonprofit world, and I was just startled when I came to Johnson Controls as to how much training is available to employees, and really fantastic. And so similar to Jerry, we also do reimbursement for college expenses. And, that's an important piece. Leadership development, there's all these training things. Kenya, you probably can relate. Like some of them are great and some of them are like, oh, I have yet another training thing to do. So there's that. But certainly it's an important aspect, right? We want to continually, and we make people, when they do their goals every year, put in development goals too. Like, how are you going to continue to learn? How are you going to grow your knowledge and skills, in whatever area that you're in? So it's something that I know our workforce folks are, and we have a whole team of, learning and development people. So yeah, it's critical.
That's great. Thank you, Jenna. And I loved your anecdote about how you were so surprised at the level of educational
I know.
and trainings.
Yeah, it was, yeah. It's nice.
That actually, Jenna, I'm going to let you answer this first question, because one of the questions that came in the chat box was, or I'm sorry, in the question box is, do any of your organizations have ongoing sustainability training for middle managers? If so, what is that program like? Are the managers then responsible for pushing sustainability to their employees? And I think based on the level of trainings that exist at
Yeah.
JPI, I'm willing to bet that some of those trainings are tied to sustainability and systems thinking and overall, communication with the employees about sustainability, right?
Yeah, for sure. So, I mean, there's so many different levels of sustainability training. So I don't know, where do I begin? So in the field, so we have these operational goals, right, for our sustainability strategy. And so let me start at the top. So our CEO has sustainability embedded into his performance goals, right? And then he cascades that to the executive team and they cascade that down. And so we have these sustainability goals in people's performance goals. And then in terms of training, so in the field, so for example, if you're in a manufacturing facility, we have these like toolbox talks. And part of what they talk about is, what are we trying to do around sustainability? So whether that's social or environmental or whatever that is, so safety, talking about making sure to recycle, making sure to be safe, making sure to reduce energy. We have these energy hunts. We train people in energy hunts all around the world in our facilities. And then they do these energy hunts and that's something that is part of our maturity matrix. So there's at different plants, they're at different levels of maturity. And if they do more of these trainings and more of this work in sustainability, they get kind of higher up on this maturity level, and they all have goals to reach certain levels of maturity. So,
okay, Jeff, can you tell us what is I know what an energy hunt is, but let's pretend our audience doesn't. So
so an energy hunt is what you might imagine it is. So you have this nice little checklist, and you go through your plant and you look for areas where there might be wasted energy. So maybe you're still using old bulbs, or maybe something is still on at night, or maybe there's doors that are wide open and the heat is on, right? So, or, other things, other more technical things, right, in our plans. But that's sort of the idea. And then you identify, well, okay, so here are all the opportunities of those. What are we going to do this year? And so, what are some of the most impactful opportunities? And then they put those into their plans for their plant. And so, if they have to budget for them, they put that in the budget for the next year. And then they do that every year, making their plant more and more energy efficient. So that's what an energy hunt is in a nutshell.
So if I'm a mid-level manager, this is a hands-on way to answer the question that came through. This is a hands-on way for me to learn about sustainability in a very user-friendly manner, right?
Yep. Mm-hmm. Exactly. Yes.
Fantastic. That's great. So Kenya, do you have any, so kind of go back to this question, do you have any ongoing sustainability training for mid-level managers? And if so, is it, let's talk about something that's different than what Johnson Controls is doing. I know you guys are competitors, but I think are there cool things that your company is doing to help train and educate mid-level folks?
Now, I would say, and I don't have all of the expertise in that part of the organization, but historically, our environmental health and safety group has provided a lot of training for what has been like our green teams in different plant locations and sites. So I'm assuming that they're still kind of the go-to source. A lot of times their training is done through our learning management system. So instead of it being stand-up training with the facilitator, which in 2020, it's good to have it through the LMS. It's an online course that you could participate in and get the information that you need for the consistency around priorities. The other way that it happens, and it's not necessarily through a mid-level manager, it's more of a senior leader, is our plant locations really do a good job of kind of driving a lot of the conversation around what are the sustainability efforts for that site. It could be around lighting. It could be around water. It could be whatever the priority is for how that site is set up. A lot of times it's that plant leader and that environmental health and safety leader that are really leading the charge and the effort within that location, and not just holding people accountable to what, the learning is and then what their actions are, but also celebrating when their wins or when we achieve a goal. So once again, kind of to that approach of, there's the stuff that happens kind of at a corporate level, but then it's a lot of things that are happening that are super impactful that are by site. So the other great thing with the LMS training is that it's available to anyone. So, there's some things that are going to be leader driven. And then honestly, sometimes there's somebody who's really personally committed at a location that almost becomes that office's green team by themselves. So there's a lot of different pathways to it, but there isn't like a standard mid-manager curriculum that I'm aware of. I think it's more targeted towards some of the green teams themselves at the different sites, and then of course plant leadership.
That's perfect. So then the second question is, the same individual asked is there general sustainability education incorporated into green teams or other employees? And then for those employees who are interested in helping but don't necessarily have sustainability training, how do you engage with them on general sustainability topics and systems thinking? Because it sounds like what you're saying, Kenya, is every plant, every facility has a green team, and whomever wants to learn about sustainability can join the green team and be get educated on it, right? You don't have to.
Yeah, and it's not based on a level, right? So when I was sitting in our Davidson location, it was a committed group of people that led the green team effort. So I think that is probably going to be the one thing that's probably pretty consistent, is that you are going to have some structure around it in different sites, but then you're also going to have a couple of people that are super committed that are going to take the opportunity and the training that's available and then start building and putting some systems in place. So unfortunately, I'm not as versed on if it's a standing curriculum for the groups, but I know there's access to it and a lot of people do leverage it.
Oh, that's great. That's I think you answered the questions. And then Jerry, I know you're an HR. Jerry and Kenya are HR experts, so and that's okay that you're not sustainability experts. It's all good. Jerry, what about at your organization? Is there any type of special training for sustainability for mid-level managers, and or what type of training exists for your green teams?
Yeah, so I'll definitely add, I'm not a sustainability expert within our organization. I can speak to say, I know we've added the sustainability piece to our new employee orientation, and then in the areas that there is that higher level of sustainability education needed. We're talking about areas like food services and nutrition, environmental services, facilities, materials management. Our teams provide education to those leaders specifically. I can't speak to anything, greater than that because, we're so robust of an organization with every type of position from A to Z. But I can tell you that, we do have sustainability education for those leaders most directly impacted by it.
That is excellent. And this is good. So we're going to now go to our second poll. So we're going to, again, ask you, the audience. The poll question will be up in just a second. And second poll question It was here, but it went away. The second poll question is, I'm just going to read it to everybody as we wait for it to come up. Have you partnered with other groups on workforce issues? And again, we're saying you can respond to multiple of the good groups once. Do you all see the poll question? Okay, I don't either. Okay. So our tech support person will bring the poll up in just a minute. But the reason we're asking is, here it is, perfect. The reason we're asking about this is kind of harkening back to our previous session. We really want to talk through organizations that you've partnered with, and then kind of see. Oh, it went away really quickly. I don't know why it's not staying up. Okay, so now if the audience could respond to this, we kind of want to see who you are all partnering with right now, and then we'll talk about the organizations that you're not partnering with. So far we've heard about how many companies are working with high school kids or high schools and with technical colleges, but we haven't heard a lot about, I guess we have heard a little bit about all of this, but I want to know if there's some organization that we're missing so that our panel could speak to that. This is great. High schools, tech schools, universities, state of Wisconsin agencies. Okay. All of the above. Let's just give it another minute or two for the 31 people who are on the chat with us. And again, if you have any questions, please chat them in to the little question mark box. So let's see. It looks like right now, okay, we're about, so basically it looks like between high schools, technical colleges, and universities, we either have 4 or 5 organizations that have worked with each of those. And we have 2 that have worked with all of the above. So then let's talk a little bit about, Jenna, I want you to talk about global NGOs that you all have worked with. And I don't want you to repeat the stuff that you talked about earlier, but if there's anything different, I know that Johnson Controls is very involved with the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals and just a lot of what's happening globally. So if you could talk about that, please, and share.
Yeah, sure. So our leaders in particular are real involved in sustainability partnerships. So for example, our chief sustainability officer here in Wisconsin, she's on the governor's task force on climate change. Clay Nessler from our staff is the senior advisor for the Buildings Initiative at World Resources Institute. Our CEO is increasingly involved in the Business Roundtable, and they just recently came out with a really ambitious climate statement. Grady Crosby, our chief diversity officer, serves on the United Nations Global Compact Network USA. So we try to, have those key partnerships with, global sustainability organizations. And then we also, join with other organizations like Trane and others in commitments and saying yes, like, we are still in pledge around the Paris Agreement. Mm-hmm. We're part of the Cool Coalition, we were the first U.S. company to sign on to EP 100. That's a group around energy productivity and being like more having better energy efficiency. The World Green Building Council is another global partner of ours that we work really closely with, and others do obviously. And then Sustainable Energy for All. We have a building accelerator that we've worked with them on, but other corporations too, right? So pulling together corporations, government partners, cities, et cetera, to all try to achieve the goal of, more sustainable world is something that we try to be very involved with. Oh, Lisa, we can't hear you. Can't hear you.
Oh, oops. Can you hear me now?
Yep.
Sorry. That's great. Johnson Controls has all of these global partnerships. It's just amazing. I'm gonna turn it over real quick to Jerry to talk about more of working with the state of Wisconsin or more of the localized ones. And then Kenya, I know you guys have worked, I shouldn't say guys, your company has worked with locally with the different municipalities. So we'll have Jerry talk first about Wisconsin, and then I want you to talk about some of those municipal partnerships that you're working on as well. Jerry, take it away.
Yeah, thanks. So I mentioned a lot of our partnerships that we already have, in place, and I don't want to go over them again. Just to make sure we keep talking about new things we're doing, give everybody in the audience ideas. I think, we want to make sure as an organization we're not having a siloed approach to what's just going on in Wisconsin. So, I'm going to share a link. We're actually part of an organization called the National Fund for Workforce Solutions. It's an excellent organization for individuals to join from any area, manufacturing, healthcare, construction. I've actually included a link for it in the chat. And we actually, there are certain subsets of that organization, like we are part of an organization or a team on there called CareerStat, and it's specifically about healthcare careers. And we connected with other organizations across the country and share best practices of what we're doing in the workforce development space. Last year we actually took a trip out to Boston to see what, healthcare entities are doing in that area. And we were also, went to a conference in Dallas where, hundreds of workforce development professionals convened to talk about, what we're doing to advance our workforces and create sustainable solutions. So, also included in that group are educators, funders for those who go after grant funds. So I definitely encourage, partnerships beyond, just that of local and regional. I think there's excellent, national organizations to plug into as well to make sure you're hearing about best practices that are going on across the country.
That is awesome. And thank you for reminding everybody. I mean, really, I'm going to say it. Everything we're doing is about partnerships, right? In order to really address workforce issues and challenges, we have to have partners. Kenya, can you tell us some of the cool things that your company is doing at the community level?
Sure. One of the things that I think that it's been challenging for us to do is you establish a partnership at a national level, and I've had this experience. You think everything's great. Everybody knows across the company, and then you have a conversation with somebody in, let's say, Tyler, Texas, and they're like, oh, we had no idea that we were partners with them. What? What do you mean? So one of the things we created last year was a partnership map. So it's just something that's available within our internal portal system, where on the diversity and inclusion page, you can go and see, okay, who are our national partners? So be it National Society of Black Engineers, the Society of Women Engineers, but it comes up, it's just, a Google map, but it has all of the placements where there's a chapter or a professionals organization. And then that way, those HR business partners or those employee resource groups or inclusion networks, when they're looking for a potential partner in their geography, we're not saying you can't have any partners, but let's start with the ones that are known entities where we know we're connected and we're making investments in those. And that seemed to have been a really good way to start bringing people kind of that awareness that, hey, there's already an existing relationship. It may only take one email versus 3 or 4 in a call, right? But just trying to get that map out there to help people know what's available. The other thing that's been really interesting is taking a look at those academic partnerships a little differently. So in today's world, there's so many school districts where young people can actually co-enroll in their community college, or programs now where there are these pathway or bridge programs to help kids make the transition from a community college maybe into a 4-year program for engineering. I know here in Texas, we've got several of those that have started to create opportunities for these students. So it's made us start thinking about how do we support and engage in a different place and in a different way. So do we first meet you at a high school program while you're kind of getting some of your core classes down because you're going to transition to a 4-year after high school, but really just trying to understand what are the ways today the people that we're hiring are coming to us and what was their path to getting there, so that maybe we could have found a way to engage them and support them earlier in the process. We know that community college sometimes to 4-year is a really hard transition and everybody doesn't make it all the way through. Are there places we can engage to kind of help give you some support to give you greater opportunity to make it into the 4-year program and then for future employment?
That is excellent as well. And I mean, my gosh, that's something. So some of the things that I'm just kind of interested in that I'd love the three of you to talk about is when we look at the future of work. And so, Kenny, I'm going to let you go first because of what you were just talking about. I mean, the reality is the way we work is changing. The way the way kids go through the school system is also changing. We're seeing that with the Gen Z generation, many more of them are choosing not to go directly to college. They're choosing to exit high school and go into the workforce. I mean, that's for a myriad of reasons, but there's a lot of shifts happening there. So how does this relate then to your company, and what do you see as the future of work? And I liked how you said, how can we engage with you earlier or maybe younger? So maybe it's engaging with a high school kid, right? Maybe at their sophomore year of high school through a STEM partnership, right? So what does that look like, and how are you positioning your company to address this? Because you're kind of the leader on this, right, at Trane. So talk about like where you see us going. Does that make sense?
So I'll tell you, we're just kind of starting this process. But what's been really interesting is these people that have come to leadership positions, a lot of them have come in extremely creative ways, right? So maybe they were a single parent, they came in as a credit analyst, and now they're leading a team in finance 20 years later, right? It's really created an opportunity for some of those partners with diverse pathways. They're really telling their stories now. And they're in a position as leaders to also be able to influence conversations and decisions. So we don't have, kind of a solution in place, but I will tell you just by conversation, a lot of people have been sharing their stories and what would have been helpful to them if they were in that situation today. So right now we've got a couple of things that people are driving that are really passion projects and kind of grassroots driven by their own personal experiences and trying to make it easier for other people. We know that education right now for some folks, the cost of it makes it extremely challenging, but we've got a ton of roles that maybe really don't require a college education, but we just had it because it just was there, right? So how do we find out what those opportunities are and really elevate those opportunities? And honestly, make sure people know that they're available. So leveraging partners where we know we've got folks who volunteer with Junior Achievement. We've got a lot of people that have a connection into high school programs, but there's no connectivity, right? So trying to understand how do we leverage maybe somebody who's volunteered or a team that's always had that as a partner to say, okay, now it's not just about volunteering, but is there a pathway to employment for those students?
That's great. And I mean, that's exactly it, right? That's our future. And I love the fact when we talk about transparency and authenticity. I mean, if you're having workers who are now able to tell their story that maybe in the past couldn't tell their story, and then your Marcom people are able to take that story and share it across the whole organization, I think that's priceless too, right? It's this era that we're in right now. There's a lot of good things that are coming because of the times of change, right? So these
right. And it's that conversation around diversity, right? Diversity, a lot of times we go immediately to gender and ethnicity, and sometimes diversity in how people got into their roles is just as valuable for us to elevate, and people are feeling more comfortable telling their stories.
Oh, that's great. Again, awesome sauce. I'm just so three of you guys are two women and one man are amazing speakers, and your companies are doing such great work. Jenna, do you want to talk at all about any insights you have? Again, looking at just the future and how Johnson Controls is really trying to address, the next generation of workers and the non-4-year educated workforce, right?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I think, as we see the future as, some of what I was talking about earlier is an important piece, right? So if you want to make a difference, we want to have you work at Johnson Controls, and then we want you to stay at Johnson Controls, right? So our company purpose, just for example, so I'm all about strategy, and our company purpose is to power our customers' success and protect the environment. So if we're doing one of those things but not the other, we're not doing what we should be doing, right? So I think for us, we really see a huge opportunity in pulling in those people who care and then engaging them at Johnson Controls, and then having them be really innovative and helping our company just really grow and be a super cool company that helps other companies be more sustainable, right? So I think that's where we're kind of seeing our future, is helping not only our company, but other companies. Like, how do we help them be a sustainable company? So that's a lot about what we're talking about and trying to develop. So yeah, it's fun.
That's wonderful too. Again, I mean, y'all are just so impressive. Jerry, I know that you probably have some great insight as well about working with, as you said before at the very beginning, you part of your job and what makes your job fun for you is that you're able to help individuals who don't have a 4-year degree or who are taking the non-traditional path to come work at your hospitals, right? And you're doing recruitment in a way that's maybe outside the box. So can you talk more about what you're seeing and then kind of the future? Clearly your position is important, right? And
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think everybody's looking for that crystal ball right now to figure out what that future workforce looks like beyond 2020. A lot of people are trying to predict, but, I think we're still trying to figure it out day to day until we can see about what that workforce looks like next year. I think, and, when you ask this question, I really think I come from the generation of when you graduated high school, you were considered a failure if you didn't go to a 4-year school. And that's totally flipped, now where, you can make equal or more when you go to a 2-year tech school or join an apprenticeship program or, learn on the job versus, going into a 4-year school right away. So, a lot of these, tech school, related positions and apprenticeships, are in high demand right now. So I feel like, some of these employer-driven, industry, organization-driven programs, I feel like a lot of students are going to be going into those in addition to all the different pathways they went before, like a traditional 4-year school. So, there's going to be as we come out of this pandemic as well, a huge need for healthcare professionals as well. So I think the need for, nurses, doctors, allied health professionals is going to double in the next, couple of years as well. So I feel like, all these employer-driven models are going to have students going into them and learning and getting paid on the job versus going to a traditional 4-year school. That's still going to be needed, but, maybe not emphasized like it was in the past. That's just my personal thought, but, curious to hear if anybody else has any feedback to that.
Ladies, do you have any feedback for Jerry? If not, I have another question. So kind of to go off of what Jerry was just saying, when we look at that crystal ball for the future, which I'm not saying we have a crystal ball, and I'm not saying that we know what the future looks like, right? Because 2020 taught us anything. We have no idea what the future looks like.
Right. Fair.
One of the things, last week we had our workforce development board meeting that Jerry and I were both at. And one of the things that came up in some of the groups, we had breakout sessions. And one of the things that came out in the breakout group sessions that I was in was a re-emphasis from employers on employee health, safety, and wellness, especially for companies or employers that have folks working in factories or have manufacturing or grocery stores, retail establishments. And again, I'm a sociologist by training. So for me, I was like, well, this should always be part of how we think about our workforce, right? Our employees are everything. And I like to think about a whole employee, and part of their mental well-being and health and happiness is all connected in my mind, but not everybody thinks like Lisa thinks, right? And so I'm wondering, as we look towards the future, and if mainstream businesses are starting to talk about employee health, safety, and wellness, and we had some sessions earlier today where the same topic came up, how do you think, or what do you think is the best way for HR professionals and or sustainability professionals to respond to that? I mean, we've talked a little bit about transparency, but I'm wondering, like in the traditional safety world, like you walk into a manufacturing facility, it'll say 110 days with no accidents, and there's like signage that shows you very clear cut in very transparent manner the safety record of the facility. But I'm thinking COVID has changed how we think about all of this. So any insights or thoughts from the three of you?
Lisa, I definitely have a perspective. I think, we do, like I said, earlier, we have a footprint that includes manufacturing facilities as well as our technician population that worked, consistently throughout the whole year. I think that you really, those three things are kind of coming together even more, right? So we've always had a platform around wellness. We've always had, in the time that I've been with the company, of course, safety is at the core. Within our Trane business, we don't start a meeting without talking about a safety tip. I've learned more things about what to do around home projects because people always have tips around that type of activity. And then just all of the things that we had to do to keep people safe in terms of PPE and spacing in our plant locations and even different shift schedules. But I think it all comes together. Some of our plants that I think even pre-COVID that did a really good job, and we have a high deductible health plan. And in that plan, one of the ways that you offset it is by engaging in wellness activities on a quarterly basis to help offset that deductible. We have so many people, unfortunately, that we give information to, but really they don't know how to use it or the value of using it. And there's some plants that have mastered it. They take the opportunity at a monthly, birthday celebration to carve out 15 minutes to talk about how do you sync up your device and your tracker and do that. And I really think the win there is knowing that there's always going to be kind of information that comes at people, but it's going to be those local relationships and conversations and the check-ins to help really understand, does everybody know how to use the tools and resources? There's great, benefit to employment, but let's not assume that everybody understands all of the ways that they can use it. And I think that's really going to become something that'll be highlighted differently. We're starting to even look at some of the things that we're going to communicate through our employee resource groups. Just, it's already happened somewhere else, but is there another touch? Is there another level of detail? Is there a campaign around it? Just to make sure everyone understands how to leverage it.
Oh, that's great insight. And I mean, again, from the front lines, right? I think with technology today in the workplace, I mean, everybody's doing it, whether it's technology around a Zoom call or technology around your Apple Watch and how to track your steps, right? Or to do a wellness app. No, I think that's excellent. Jerry, Jenna?
So just a few comments. And I think we are starting to move, we as a world society, toward understanding the importance of balance, understanding the importance of the ability of bringing your authentic self to work, bringing your whole self to work. So we certainly have training around that at Johnson Controls. We have the same, possibly the exact same health program that you mentioned, Kenya, with Trane, where you get money off of your health insurance if you do certain health behaviors. But certainly this year, right, I've seen for us, for my kids, more resources available to us around wellness. I mean, I think there's certainly a recognition that this pandemic has been hard on us mentally as well as in all other ways. So I think that may be something that stays, that this importance of our mental health is recognized more. And those, so we have, as I'm sure you guys do, the employee assistance program and the ability to call at any time. And, those kinds of resources are available to us. But really, going after that and having that, we now have this like Live Well app that, we're being really encouraged to use. And I mean, I think it used to be just like, show up, do your work, go home. And now it's like, okay, we get that you do your best work if you show up healthy in all possible ways. So there's just, HR, you guys get that and are following up on that. And so we just have to do our little things so that we get our money off on our health insurance.
Oh, that's great, Jenna. Jerry, what do you think? As somebody in the healthcare profession or companies in the healthcare field, right?
Yeah, I mean, I'll echo all of that, from an HR perspective and the wellness initiatives. You mentioned safety before too. Pre-pandemic, keeping our employees as well as our patients safe is top of mind. We were well on our journey to become a high reliability organization pre-pandemic. And that includes, increased communication and adopting practices from other, very safe, industries such as construction. I believe there are practices from the military as well. And it really starts with communication to keep, our workers safe. As some of the movements we've had in the last year to 2 years are, shift huddles where, site-wide, the hospital president meets with, all the managers and, we go over a daily debriefing, to make sure that, safety is the most important at each one of those sites. And we talk about those safety factors as well. So, I know we mentioned the HR side of things, but as well as we want to make sure we keep our workforces safe as well.
Okay, so we have a couple minutes left. I'd like to go around and have everyone just kind of give your thoughts and feelings and your insight about kind of what you think. There's one take-home message for somebody who is an HR professional or a sustainability professional kind of working at this intersectional space. What is that? What's the take-home message? What's one thing that they can think about or do? And I'll start. I'm gonna say culture. I think everyone needs to understand the culture of their organization. And if the culture of your company is not open to these things, then you need to start with culture first. Like, I don't think we can do any change in an organization until that the culture is open to making change happen. My 10 cents for whatever it's worth. Who would like to go next?
I can jump in. So, I feel like, we're really at that point in time where, individuals can propose really innovative ways of doing things from a workforce perspective and get traction. We're right at that intersection where, next year we'll hopefully be coming out of this pandemic. There's a push for social and racial equity across the country. We're at that inflection point where, we're going to face some serious skills gaps here across all organizations as we continue to grow. I think there's really a time right now for innovation within workforce development and creating sustainable workforces. So, don't be afraid to go after something innovative and push the limits based on what's being done.
That's great. Love it. Ladies, who would like to go next?
I'll jump in. I think Jerry changed my thought. I would say the other thing is, most of our teams, well, at least I can speak for my team, we're pretty lean. And there's a lot of innovation that's happening and great ideas. And at sometimes it's a bit overwhelming. How are we going to do it all? And I think the shift there is to help enable, right? So think of yourself as the group that's building the process, testing, creating some guidelines and resources. But how do you kind of take the expertise of the team in a way that you can multiply it? So not seeing it as like overwhelming, but really thinking about how great is it that there's all of these, great ideas being generated, but then how do we help people kind of pick the one that they're going to go after, and then enable them to be successful through implementation.
That's also wonderful. It's all about teamwork, enabling one another to be successful. Jenna? Final thoughts.
That's great. Let's see. I'll just say again, strategy. So if people are looking for a way to have long-term impact, just having a clear, transparent strategy and cascading that through the organization, but also this study around that people really they're choosing a company because they perform better on sustainability than other choices, and they're choosing to stay at a company if they have a strong sustainability plan. So as a person passionate about sustainability, just integrating sustainability into your workforce recruitment and retention and innovation, right? So
Mhm.
people are innovative people and vice versa. There's all this, whatever research around that connection as well. So as we want an innovative workforce that comes and stays, go sustainability professionals and sustainability education.
That's great. All right. So I would like to, I believe it. I think all businesses should be triple bottom line run, right? And I think the fact that Aurora Advocate, that you're a nonprofit, you're thinking about all of these things already as a nonprofit. I think that both Trane and Johnson Controls are being proactive. Sorry. I don't know how to stop this. Sorry. I'm on my husband's computer. Sorry. Somebody was calling. Anyway, I think the Trane and Johnson Controls, you're looking towards the future. You're being very proactive in this space. And I think the reality is this is where we're going, right? And sustainability should be part and parcel to how you run and operate your business. So I appreciate all of you being here with us today for 2 hours and sharing all of your insight. Thank you so much. Kenya,
Thank you.
and Jerry, thank you. You guys you ladies and Jerry did an awesome job today. And if you want, you can go back and you can watch the recording later. Thank you, everybody who's been at the conference today. Have a wonderful evening, and we look forward to seeing you tomorrow live at the conference again. Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.